Look at your hands right now. Go ahead. Actually look at them. Now ask yourself honestly, do they look the way you thought they would at this age? Does your body feel the way you expected it to feel? Or did something quietly start slipping somewhere between your 40s and now? The energy you used to have, the sharpness in the mornings, the way you used to recover from things. And nobody ever gave you a real answer for why. Here's what they never told you. Most of what we call aging, the fatigue that sits in your bones by 3 p.m., the joints that make noise when you stand up, the skin that stopped bouncing back, the brain that takes a half second longer to find the word you want, most of it is not inevitable. It is not written in your DNA like a sentence you have no choice but to finish. It is not simply the price of time. It is what happens when a body stops receiving what it actually needs. And right now, in rural Pennsylvania, and the farmlands of Ohio and Indiana and Missouri, there are women in their mid-70s who wake before sunrise and work until dark without complaint. There are men in their 80s who have never filled a prescription in their lives, who carry things, who build things, who look at you with completely clear eyes and strong, steady hands, and have absolutely no framework for understanding why the rest of the modern world is falling apart at 55. They are not genetic anomalies. They are not exceptional human specimens. They are simply fed correctly. And today, for the next 30 minutes, you are going to find out exactly how.
This is not a wellness trend. This is not a content creator's opinion. Researchers at Vanderbilt University studying Amish communities found measurably slower epigenetic aging in Amish adults compared to surrounding non-Amish populations living in identical geographic areas. Epigenetic age is your biological age, the actual age of your cells, as distinct from the number of years you've been alive. The Amish are biologically younger than their chronological age suggests. Consistently. Across generations. The scientific field of aging research now recognizes that diet is the single largest modifiable factor in how fast or how slowly we age at the cellular level, accounting for up to 80% of the difference between your chronological age and your biological age. The Amish have 20 specific foods responsible for that difference. Here they are.
Food 1. Raw grass-fed butter. Let's start with the one that is going to make some of you uncomfortable. Because if you are over 50, you spent most of your adult life being told, firmly, repeatedly, by doctors and magazines and television commercials, that this food was dangerous, that the fat in it would clog your arteries, that the responsible, health-conscious thing to do was to replace it with something that came in a tub with a green label and the word light printed on the front. So you did. A lot of you did. For decades. And during those same decades, osteoporosis became an epidemic. Arterial calcification became one of the most common findings on cardiac scans. And a generation of people who faithfully avoided saturated fat found themselves with brittle bones and stiffening arteries and no explanation for why. Here is the explanation.
Raw grass-fed butter contains vitamin K2, a nutrient that performs one of the most critical biological functions in an aging body. K2 is the molecule that tells calcium where to go. In the presence of sufficient K2, calcium is directed into bone tissue and teeth, where it builds density and strength. In the absence of K2, that same calcium deposits instead in arterial walls, in soft tissue, in kidneys. Arterial calcification, the hardening of arteries that drives cardiovascular events, is now understood to be in large part a K2 deficiency disease. And so is osteoporosis. Both conditions. Same missing nutrient. The fat you were told to avoid contained it in abundance. Raw butter also contains butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid that is the primary fuel source for the cells lining your colon. Butyrate has direct anti-inflammatory effects on the gut lining and is one of the most studied compounds in preventing intestinal permeability, the condition that allows inflammatory particles to enter the bloodstream and drive the chronic systemic inflammation that accelerates aging in every organ simultaneously. And here is the detail that changes the entire picture of skin aging. K2 deficiency accelerates facial bone loss after 60. The structural changes in aging faces, the hollowing, the sagging, the collapse of features, are driven not only by skin changes but by the gradual dissolution of the bone structure beneath the skin. K2 is the primary nutritional brake on that process. The Amish churn butter from raw cream. They spread it thickly on sourdough. They cook with it. They eat it without measuring it, without guilt, without the anxious arithmetic of a generation that was given bad information and paid for it in their bodies. Start bringing it back. Your bones and your arteries are waiting.
Food 2. Lacto-fermented sauerkraut. After 60, your gut is not the gut you had at 40. And I don't mean that casually. I mean that the community of bacteria living in your intestinal tract, the microbiome that governs your immune system, your mood, your metabolic function, your inflammatory status, and your cognitive clarity, has been quietly losing members for years. The diversity of the aging gut microbiome drops by 30 to 40% between ages 40 and 70 in people eating a standard Western diet. 30 to 40%. And with every species that disappears, something in the body changes. Inflammation rises. Immune response slows. The gut-brain axis, the direct communication channel between your intestinal bacteria and your brain, begins sending different signals. And most people just call it getting older. It isn't just getting older, it's getting emptier. And there is a food that fills it back up.
Lacto-fermented sauerkraut, made from nothing but cabbage, salt, and thyme, is one of the most probiotic-dense foods that exists. A single tablespoon of raw, unpasteurized sauerkraut contains more live beneficial bacteria than most commercial probiotic supplements deliver in an entire capsule. Not comparable. Not close. In 2021, Stanford University published a randomized controlled trial that divided participants into two groups, one increasing fiber intake, one increasing fermented food consumption. After 10 weeks, the fermented food group showed measurable increases in microbiome diversity and significant reductions in 19 distinct inflammatory proteins, including interleukin-6 and interleukin-12, the specific cytokines most directly implicated in age-related cognitive decline, cardiovascular disease, and immune dysfunction. 19 inflammatory markers. Reduced. From sauerkraut. During fermentation, lactobacillus bacteria also produce GABA precursors, compounds that support the inhibitory neurotransmitter responsible for calm, for sleep quality, for the nervous system regulation that deteriorates with age and contributes to the anxiety and sleep disruption that so many people over 60 simply accept as normal. The Amish eat a small portion of fermented vegetables with nearly every meal. Not as a health practice they are consciously maintaining. As something that has simply always been on the table. That consistency, that daily, uninterrupted, generational habit, is the entire point. 1 tablespoon. Every meal. That is all it takes to begin rebuilding what time has been quietly taking.
Food 3. Raw honey. I want to tell you something that stopped me when I first heard it. Archaeologists opened a tomb in Egypt, 3,000 years old. Inside, among the artifacts and the offerings and the things that civilization had placed alongside its dead, was a jar of honey. They opened it. They tasted it. It was still good. 3,000 years. Every processed food in your pantry will be unrecognizable in 5 years. Honey survived 3 millennia intact and edible in an Egyptian tomb. And what makes it immortal? The compounds that protect it from decay, from bacteria, from the slow entropy that destroys everything else, are the exact same compounds that make it powerful inside a human body after 60.
Raw honey, unheated, unfiltered, with pollen and propolis fully intact, contains quercetin and camphorol, 2 flavonoids that have become the subject of serious pharmaceutical attention in longevity research. Here is why: as we age, damaged cells that can no longer function properly accumulate in tissues throughout the body. These cells, called senescent cells, don't die the way healthy cells do. They sit there. And they secrete a constant stream of inflammatory compounds that damage surrounding healthy tissue. Scientists call them zombie cells. And their accumulation is now understood as one of the primary drivers of accelerated biological aging. Quercetin selectively clears senescent cells. It is what researchers call senolytic. It targets and eliminates the zombie cells that are silently inflaming your body from the inside. It is currently among the top 5 most actively studied compounds in the entire field of longevity pharmacology. Clinical trials are underway. Patents are being filed. The Amish have been eating it in raw honey for 200 years. Raw honey also contains propolis, a resinous substance bees collect from tree bark and buds, with documented antifungal, antiviral, and anti-tumor activity that provides immune support specifically critical for aging immune systems that are losing their edge. Always raw. Always local when possible. Stirred into warm tea, not boiling water. Used in fermented preparations. Spread on sourdough with butter. Medicine that tastes like a gift.
Food 4. Bone broth. Your joints are not wearing out because you are getting older. I need you to hear that clearly, because the story most people have been told, that joint deterioration is simply the inevitable math of years lived in a body, is incomplete in a way that has cost millions of people their mobility, their independence, and their quality of life. Cartilage does not wear out on its own in well-nourished bodies. It wears out in bodies that stopped receiving the raw materials required to rebuild it. Cartilage is a living tissue. It turns over. It regenerates when it has what it needs. And for most of the last century, the modern diet has quietly removed the primary source of those raw materials from the table. The Amish never removed it. They simmer bones for 24 hours and drink what comes out. And their joints stay functional at ages that would have most modern adults already scheduled for replacement surgery.
Long simmered bone broth, 12 to 24 hours at a bare simmer, with a splash of apple cider vinegar to draw minerals from the bone matrix, is rich in collagen, which breaks down during cooking into gelatin and then into its constituent amino acids, glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline. Collagen type 2, the specific structural protein of cartilage, is provided in meaningful amounts by broths made from chicken feet, knuckle bones, and cartilage-rich cuts. The body cannot rebuild joint cartilage without these amino acid precursors. Providing them through food is one of the most direct and evidence-supported dietary interventions for joint health available. Glycine does something else that matters profoundly for people over 60, it improves sleep. Research published in the journal Sleep found that glycine supplementation before bed significantly reduced time to sleep onset, improved subjective sleep quality scores, and reduced daytime fatigue and cognitive impairment. In aging bodies where sleep architecture is already fragmented and restorative deep sleep is already declining, this is not a minor benefit. Hydroxyproline signals dermal fibroblasts, the cells responsible for producing skin collagen, to synthesize new structural protein. Skin thickness decreases approximately 7% per decade after age 20. Hydroxyproline from bone broth is one of the few dietary inputs with direct mechanistic evidence for slowing and partially reversing that loss. Make a batch this week. Roast your bones first for 30 minutes at high heat to develop flavor. Cover with cold water, add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, bring to a gentle simmer, and leave it. 12 hours minimum. 24 is better. Strain it, jar it, drink it warm every morning like the Amish have done every winter for generations.
Food 5. Pasture-raised egg yolks. For 50 years, you may have been throwing away the most important part of the egg. The part that protects your brain from the kind of cognitive decline that steals people's identities in their 70s. The part that protects your eyes from the leading cause of blindness in people over 60. The part that keeps your hormonal system functioning in a body that is working increasingly hard to hold it together. Every morning, generation after generation, the Amish cracked whole eggs into a cast iron skillet greased with lard and ate every single part of what came out. And researchers studying their cognitive aging outcomes keep finding the same thing. Something is protecting them. Something most people aren't getting. 2 egg yolks contain more of it than almost anything else you could eat.
Choline, found in concentrated amounts in egg yolks, is the precursor to acetylcholine, the primary neurotransmitter of memory, learning, and attention. Acetylcholine production declines with age. Its depletion is the central neurological feature of Alzheimer's disease. The neurons responsible for acetylcholine synthesis are the first to deteriorate in the earliest stages of cognitive decline. More than 90% of Americans are estimated to be choline deficient. The symptoms, brain fog, poor memory, low motivation, difficulty concentrating, are so common after 50 that most people simply accept them as the normal texture of aging. They are not normal. They are a deficiency with a dietary correction. Egg yolks also contain lutein and zeaxanthin, carotenoids that concentrate specifically in the macula of the eye and represent the primary nutritional defense against age-related macular degeneration, the leading cause of irreversible blindness in adults over 60. There is no pharmaceutical equivalent. There is no surgical prevention. There is only nutrition, and the yolk is where it lives. Whole eggs, daily, from chickens that live on pasture and eat what chickens evolved to eat. The nutrient density difference between a pasture-raised egg and a commercial supermarket egg is not subtle, up to 3 times more vitamin D, twice the omega-3 fatty acids, dramatically higher fat-soluble vitamin content. Eat the whole egg. Every day. It was always the right answer.
Voice 1. We are halfway through this list. And I want to pause here for just a moment, because if you're still watching, If you have been here since the beginning and you are taking notes or thinking about your own kitchen right now, I want you to do one thing. Drop a comment below and tell me which one of these 5 foods surprised you most. Or tell me which one you stopped eating years ago that you're now thinking about bringing back. Because here's what I've learned from this community. The people watching this video are not passive. They are not people who collect information and do nothing with it. They are people who actually change things. And your comment, your experience, your story makes this channel what it is. Now, 5 foods down, 15 to go. And what is coming next? Foods 6 through 10 goes into territory that most health content completely avoids. We are going into what specifically happens to the brain, the hormones, and the cardiovascular system after 60. And the Amish have specific foods that address each one. One of them contains a compound currently in pharmaceutical clinical trials as an anti-aging drug. The Amish eat it for lunch. Keep watching. Food 6. Kefir. There is a second brain in your body, not a metaphor, a literal second nervous system, embedded in the lining of your gut, containing more neurons than your spinal cord, producing more than 90% of your body's serotonin and more than 50% of its dopamine. After 60, when mood starts shifting, when sleep becomes unreliable, when the kind of low-level anxiety you never used to feel starts showing up without obvious cause, a significant part of what is happening there, in the gut, in the community of organisms that govern that second brain. Kefir is how the Amish feed it.
Milk kefir, made by fermenting raw milk with kefir grains, a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, contains between 30 and 50 distinct probiotic strains in a single glass. This is not comparable to any commercially available probiotic supplement. The diversity alone represents a category of gut support that capsules simply cannot replicate. Kefir is rich in tryptophan, the amino acid precursor to serotonin. In aging bodies where the gut-brain axis is already under stress, consistent tryptophan delivery through fermented food has measurable effects on mood stability, sleep onset, and emotional resilience. Casein phosphopeptides in kefir enhance calcium and mineral absorption specifically, making kefir not just a probiotic food but a mineral delivery system for aging bones that need every bioavailability advantage available. 1 cup daily. Made from raw milk when possible. The Amish have kept kefir grains alive in their families for generations, feeding them, passing them to children, maintaining a living culture that is itself a form of inheritance.
Food 7. Raw garlic. Every civilization that ever built anything lasting used this plant as medicine. The Egyptians gave it to pyramid workers. Roman soldiers carried it. Medieval European physicians prescribed it. Korean, Chinese, Ayurvedic, and Native American healing traditions all independently arrived at the same conclusion across thousands of years and thousands of miles of separation. And the Amish, who don't read nutritional research and don't follow wellness trends, still reach for raw garlic when something in the body needs attention, because they watched it work. For 200 years, they watched it work. And now we know why.
Allicin, the active compound released when garlic is crushed, reduces arterial stiffness. Arterial stiffness is the primary measurable marker of cardiovascular aging. As arteries lose elasticity with age, the heart must work harder, blood pressure rises, and the risk of cardiac events climbs. Clinical studies have shown that consistent garlic consumption reduces pulse wave velocity, the direct measurement of arterial stiffness, comparably to some classes of pharmaceutical blood pressure medications. S-L-cysteine, another sulfur compound in aged and raw garlic, crosses the blood-brain barrier and has demonstrated inhibition of amyloid beta aggregation in laboratory studies. Amyloid plaques are the pathological hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. The compound in garlic that crosses into the brain and interrupts their formation is not in a drug. It is in a clove. Garlic sulfur compounds also reduce oxidative damage to telomeres, the protective caps on chromosomes whose shortening is one of the most direct molecular measures of cellular aging. 1 to 2 raw cloves daily, crushed and rested for 10 minutes before eating to allow allicin to fully form. The Amish eat it raw, cook with it generously, and ferment it into black garlic preparations for winter.
Food 8. Blackstrap molasses. Before white sugar became cheap enough to put on every table in America, this is what people used to sweeten their food. Dark, thick, slightly bitter. absolutely loaded with the minerals that aging bodies are most desperately short of. And we replaced it with something that not only contains none of those minerals, but actively depletes the ones you already have.
2 tablespoons of blackstrap molasses, the dark, concentrated byproduct separated when sugar cane is refined to white sugar, contains approximately 20% of the daily value for iron, 15% for calcium, 18% for magnesium, and meaningful amounts of potassium, copper, and vitamin B6. Magnesium deficiency affects an estimated 50 to 80% of adults in developed countries. The consequences are wide and poorly recognized: chronic muscle tension that won't release, sleep that never feels fully restorative, anxiety that appears without obvious cause, blood pressure that creeps upward, constipation, irregular heartbeat, and insulin resistance. Magnesium is a cofactor in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body. Its deficiency after 60 is not a footnote. It is a central driver of suffering. Copper in molasses supports catalase, the enzyme your cells use to neutralize hydrogen peroxide, one of the primary oxidants produced by normal cellular metabolism. Copper also supports the cross-linking of collagen fibers that gives connective tissue its strength, and maintains the enzyme responsible for hair pigmentation, one reason copper-deficient aging correlates with premature graying. 2 tablespoons in warm water in the morning. Stirred into porridge. Used in baking. The Amish sweetened their food with something that rebuilt what daily life depleted. We replaced it with something that hollows you out faster.
Food 9. Organ meats, especially liver. I said earlier that one food on this list is so nutritionally dense that researchers keep struggling to find a supplement stack that approaches what it delivers in a single serving. This is that food. And the modern world decided it was disgusting. Every Plains tribe fed hunters the raw liver of the kill before anything else was touched, before the warriors, before the elders, before anyone. Every traditional Asian culture built restorative dishes around organ meats. Norse, Celtic, Mediterranean, African. Every food culture that survived long enough to have a food culture prized organs above muscle meat. And somewhere between 1950 and now, the developed world threw all of that knowledge away and called it sophistication. The nutrient deficiencies that followed are, I believe, one of the most under-discussed drivers of accelerated aging in the modern world.
Beef liver, 4 ounces, contains over 700% of the daily value for vitamin B12. Over 500% for preformed vitamin A as retinol. Significant amounts of folate, copper, zinc, selenium, and every B vitamin simultaneously in a single serving. It contains CoQ10, the coenzyme at the center of mitochondrial energy production, concentrated most heavily in heart muscle tissue. CoQ10 declines dramatically after age 40. It is further depleted by statin medications prescribed to millions of people over 60. Its depletion is directly associated with the fatigue, muscle weakness, and cardiac inefficiency that so many people in this age group simply accept as aging. It contains copper for catalase, retinol for skin cell turnover rate and immune T-cell maturation, B12 for nerve myelin maintenance, the insulating sheath around nerve fibers whose degradation drives the cognitive slowing and peripheral neuropathy of aging. The Amish prepare it simply, soaked in raw milk for 1 hour to mellow the flavor, then fried in lard with caramelized onions. Salt and pepper. Nothing else. Once a week, without drama, without the reverence of a superfood ritual, just dinner. The most powerful nutritional intervention on this entire list, eaten quietly at a kitchen table in rural Ohio, by a man who has no idea why the rest of the world is tired all the time.
Food 10. True sourdough bread. Glycation. Remember that word. It is the process by which excess blood sugar bonds to protein molecules throughout your body and stiffens them. Wrinkled skin is glycation. Stiff arteries are glycation. Cloudy eye lenses are glycation. Stiffened joints are glycation. The leathery, aged texture that appears in tissues throughout the body with time is, in large part, glycation. And the bread most people eat every single day. The bread that goes from grain to grocery shelf in under 48 hours using commercial yeast and no fermentation drives more glycation than almost any other common food because of how rapidly it raises blood sugar. The bread the Amish eat does the opposite.
Authentic sourdough, made with a living starter culture and fermented for 12 to 24 hours, undergoes chemical transformations during fermentation that commercial bread manufacturing skips entirely in the name of speed and profit. Phytic acid, the anti-nutrient in grains that binds to zinc, magnesium, iron, and calcium and blocks their absorption, is largely broken down by the acidic fermentation environment. The minerals in sourdough are bioavailable in a way that the identical minerals in commercial bread are not. GABA is produced directly during long fermentation by lactobacillus bacteria, the same calming neurotransmitter whose decline in aging brains contributes to anxiety, sleep difficulty, and the nervous system dysregulation that makes everything harder after 60. Most importantly, the glycemic index of properly fermented sourdough is dramatically lower than commercial bread. Blood sugar rises slowly. Insulin response is measured. Glycation is reduced at every meal in which sourdough replaces conventional bread. The Amish maintain starter cultures that are decades old. Some families have starters that predate living memory, fed weekly, baked with regularly, passed to children when they leave home. They are not maintaining a trend. They are maintaining a living inheritance that keeps their blood sugar stable and their bodies younger.
Foods 11 through 16. The structural layer. We are now moving into the foods that work on structure. On the bones, the connective tissue, the cellular machinery that keeps the body physically intact as years accumulate. These are the foods that determine whether you are sturdy or fragile at 75, whether you recover from falls or don't, whether your spine stays tall or begins its slow forward lean, whether you move through the world or are moved through it. Dried plums. A randomized controlled trial from Florida State University found that postmenopausal women eating 10 prunes daily for 12 months maintained significantly better bone density than a control group taking calcium supplements. Not equivalent, better. The phenolic compounds in prunes specifically inhibit osteoclast activity, the cellular mechanism of bone breakdown. Boron in prunes supports estrogen and testosterone metabolism in aging, extending the hormonal protection of bone that declines sharply after menopause and andropause. The Amish dry plums every summer and eat them through winter without ever knowing they are running a clinical trial on themselves. Lard. Vitamin D in rendered fat from pastured pigs. Stable monounsaturated fat profile. Palmitoleic acid for skin barrier integrity. No oxidation at cooking temperatures unlike polyunsaturated seed oils that generate inflammatory lipid peroxides when heated. They cooked in the fat that healed them. The swap to vegetable oils was one of the most consequential nutritional mistakes of the 20th century. Nettle tea as daily mineral infusion. Silica, the cofactor for collagen synthesis and the structural mineral of arterial walls, hair shafts, and nail tissue. Bioavailable iron, calcium, and magnesium delivered daily in a form the body absorbs efficiently. The difference between a supplement dose and a daily infusion is the difference between a spike and a steady stream. 1 quart of strong nettle infusion, 1 ounce of dried leaf steeped overnight in just boiled water, provides a mineral matrix that accumulates in tissue over months, quietly, consistently. The way healing actually works. Heirloom beans, spermidine. I told you one food on this list contains a compound currently in pharmaceutical clinical trials as an anti-aging molecule. This is it. Spermidine triggers autophagy, the cellular self-cleaning process by which the body identifies damaged, dysfunctional cellular components and dismantles them to be rebuilt correctly. Autophagy is the central mechanism in biological aging research right now. Higher dietary spermidine intake is consistently associated with lower all-cause mortality in large population studies. It is in beans. It is in wheat germ. It is in the foods that have been on Amish tables at every meal for generations. Wild herbs as functional food. Rosemary contains carnosic acid, the most potent brain-protective polyphenol found in common kitchen herbs. It inhibits acetylcholinesterase, the enzyme that breaks down acetylcholine, extending the availability of the neurotransmitter whose decline defines cognitive aging. This is the same mechanism targeted by the primary class of Alzheimer's pharmaceutical medications. Sage has been studied in 2 separate clinical trials for cognitive function in healthy older adults, both showing measurable improvement in memory scores after supplementation. The Amish cook with rosemary, sage, and thyme in everything. Not as flavoring, as medicine that tastes like dinner. Apple cider vinegar in every meal. Post-meal glucose reduction through acetic acid, blocking glycation at every single meal. Enhanced mineral absorption from every food consumed alongside it. Most critically, after 60, support for declining stomach acid production. Hypochlorhydria, insufficient stomach acid, is one of the most widespread and least diagnosed causes of malnutrition in people over 60, because without adequate acid, protein cannot be broken down and minerals cannot be absorbed regardless of how nutritiously you are eating. The Amish weave ACV into every dressing, every brine, every marinade. Their stomach acid stays supported. Their nutrition reaches their cells. Foods 17 through 19. Brain, energy, and skin. Stone ground whole grain porridge. Avenanthramides, anti-inflammatory compounds unique to oats that specifically protect the endothelial cells lining arterial walls. Beta-glucan for immune modulation and LDL reduction. The slow glucose curve of whole grain porridge providing cognitive fuel that lasts for hours without the cortisol spike and crash of caffeine dependency that so many people over 60 have quietly built their mornings around. The Amish sit down to hot porridge before sunrise. They do not need stimulants to start moving. Their fuel is already burning clean. Raw apples and fresh-pressed cider. Quercetin in the skin. The same senolytic compound we found in raw honey, delivered again through a different food, compounding its cellular clearing effect. Pectin for gentle daily cholesterol management and gut motility. Critical after 60 when digestive transit slows and the resulting stagnation affects everything from energy to skin clarity to mood. Malic acid supporting the mitochondrial Krebs cycle, reducing the muscle fatigue and extended recovery time that begins to define physical aging for many people in their 60s. Preserved and smoked fish. Omega-3 DHA, the structural fatty acid of brain cell membranes. Not just anti-inflammatory support. Structural material. The literal building block of the membrane through which every neuron in your brain communicates. DHA is the most evidence-supported nutritional intervention for cognitive aging that exists in the research literature. And it is in the smoked and pickled fish that Amish communities near waterways have preserved and eaten through every winter for 200 years.
Food 20, the invisible superfood. 20. I saved this one for last on purpose. Not because it is the least important. Because it is the most important, and I needed you to trust me enough by now to actually hear what I'm about to say without dismissing it. The 20th Amish superfood has no calorie count. It has no macronutrient profile. You cannot order it. You cannot find it at a farmer's market or a health food store. No one will ever make a documentary about it or put it on a supplement label. It is the act of eating slowly. Eating in the presence of people you love. Eating in a state of genuine, unhurried calm. After 60, when stomach acid is already declining, when digestive enzyme secretion is already compromised, when the absorptive surface of your gut has already been affected by decades of whatever life has delivered, the physiological state in which you eat determines whether any of these 19 foods actually reach your cells, or whether they simply pass through. In a stressed, rushed, distracted state, fight or flight, sympathetic nervous system activated, your body is not digesting. It is surviving. Stomach acid production drops. Digestive enzymes don't secrete fully. Gut motility changes. You can eat the most nutrient-dense meal of your life and absorb a fraction of what is in it, because your body has decided there is a threat more urgent than nutrition.
Research published in the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health confirmed what traditional cultures understood intuitively. People who eat regularly with others consume more diverse, more nutritious diets, experience better mental health outcomes, show stronger immune function, and demonstrate slower cognitive aging than people who eat alone or eat distracted. The mechanism is partly behavioral. Slower eating allows satiety signals to reach the brain before overconsumption occurs. It is partly neurological. The parasympathetic nervous system, activated by social safety and genuine presence, is the system under which digestion functions optimally. It is partly something that science is still finding words for. The way that being genuinely present with people you love signals to the nervous system that the world is safe enough to be fully in. The Amish pray before every meal. They sit, multiple generations at the same table. They talk about real things. There are no phones. There is no background television. There is no eating while driving or working or scrolling. There is only the meal, the people, and the presence. And when it is finished, they stay a little longer. That is the 20th superfood, the one that makes the other 19 work. 19 foods that heal specific mechanisms of aging, and one practice that ensures the healing actually reaches you. You can begin eating raw garlic tomorrow. You can make bone broth this weekend. You can find a sourdough starter and bring it to life. All of it matters. All of it will change how your body feels. But if you eat those foods alone, rushed, half present, already thinking about the next thing, you will still be missing something. The table is where it all comes together. Sit down at yours. You came into this video maybe feeling like aging was something happening to you, something you were watching from the inside without much say in the direction it was taking. You leave knowing something different, that most of what we call aging is negotiable, that the Amish have been negotiating it successfully for 200 years, that the foods they eat, the fats they never abandoned, the fermentation they never stopped, the bones they never stopped simmering, add up to a biological advantage that shows up in their cells, in their joints, in their minds, in their faces, in their hands. And you now have 20 specific, affordable, immediately actionable things you can start doing about your own aging. This week, not someday. This week. This channel exists for people who refuse to accept decline as a default, for people who are not willing to hand over their vitality to a system that profits more from their decline than from their health, for people who want to be strong, clear-headed, and genuinely alive, not just in their 40s, not just in their 50s, but at 60, at 70, at 80, and beyond. If that is who you are, subscribe right now. Because every single week, we go deeper into the wisdom, the foods, the practices, and the knowledge that built strong people before the modern world decided convenience was more valuable than health. You will not regret being part of this community. The people here are not passive. They take what they learn and they do something with it. And when they come back to the comments and share what changed, that is what makes this channel worth building.
Save this video. Come back to it. Pick 2 or 3 foods from this list and begin with those. Sustainable change happens at the edge of your current habits, not 100 miles past them. Share this with someone you love who is over 60 and feeling like their body is moving in a direction they didn't agree to. Share it with your mother, your father, your closest friend who keeps saying they don't feel right and can't explain why. The answers were never complicated. They were just forgotten.
Now you remember. Build something with it. Stay rooted.